Hello, my name is Anastasia, and this is the newest video that I'm making. I actually made my last video yesterday, but I didn't want to make anyone have to sit through like half hour to an hour worth of stuff all at once. And I found, for me anyway, if I try and like separate major subjects or events, I find it easier than smashing it all together. So this is a video on how since New Year's Day, when my husband told me that he was male to female transgender, how it has affected me, like with what's going on socially and in the world. And there's lots out there about how it affects the transgender individual, and that's not very well. It doesn't treat them very well, but there's very little on how it affects like individuals like me who are the partner to the transgendered individual. And there are a lot of pitfalls to anyone who chooses to be in a relationship or a friendship or an ally to someone who is transgendered. And I'm discovering these as time passes. When I was first informed, for the first few months, I was just trying to come to grasp with my new reality, and it wasn't until probably around April that I started noticing how it was viewed by society and government and the world around us. And it's pretty horrible. There's a good, strong community that is for people just being who they are, but there's a larger community that thinks they have the right to tell you whether or not you can exist. And that is something I take great issue to. I find people's attitudes change the second they find out, right? Like, I've overheard things in one of my workplace, not by co-workers, but by clients who speak poorly about transgenders and gays and lesbians, and it makes me angry, very angry, but I'm not really in a position that I can say anything and keep my job. Everybody is entitled to their opinion, but if your opinion tries to decide who has a right to exist or live or die, then that's really not an opinion. That is like God complex, which no human really has the right to make those decisions. I'm pretty open with people. Like, I make these videos and on Facebook, and my friends and people who are involved in my life all know what's going on in my life. I'm a lot more cautious with strangers, I guess is a good word. And if I'm just doing my everyday shopping or whatever, and I'm talking to somebody, then I will make my opinions very clear. But I've noticed when it comes to mostly employment, when I have to interact with these people, and it makes me kind of ashamed and sad inside that I can't fight back or try and get these ignorant people to just get their heads out of their asses. And right, like, even if you're against it, you don't believe in it, or whatever homophobic excuse you give yourself, you still doesn't give you the right to push your opinions and your views on others. Everybody has the right to exist. Male, female, transgender, gay, lesbian, straight, cis. Everybody has the right to exist and be who they are. My biggest challenge that personally that I've come across is I recently went to a job interview, And during the interview, I referred to my spouse as my spouse, right? It was an interview. I'm not going to like go into details or anything, but the person that was interviewing me at the end of the interview said something about my husband, and I did not correct her. And I'm a little bit ashamed of that, because, like, ashamed of me for that. I'm not ashamed that my spouse is transgender or a woman or anything like that. I'm ashamed that I did not feel comfortable enough to correct her, because I didn't want to not get the job because of that. And there's so much bigotry and hatred out there, and I don't know this individual well enough to know if they're that type of person. And I wasn't willing to risk not getting the job by correcting her. Now I came home and I told Rain about it, and you could tell Rain was disappointed. And that made me feel even more awful. Like, she said she understood why, because I need a job, but she wished I had felt comfortable enough to correct her right away. And it's just, and I know if there wasn't all the negativity going on all over about it, I would have felt more comfortable. But every day I turn on the TV. Okay, let's go. Today is June 20th. Let's go before the Orlando massacre that happened. Before that, all you see on Facebook, the news, Twitter, everything is about whether or not transgenders should be allowed to use the washroom that they need to use. And then you get the opinionated people that say that they should all be killed. And then you get the opinionated people that say that they should pee at home, and instead of just treating them like they're human, they're like considered a subclass of humanity. History should have taught us that subclassing any individual doesn't work, and it's always viewed, like, in the future as atrocities. But for some reason, people don't really seem to learn those lessons that history does try and teach us. So all this negativity on the news and on social media, and the only actual transgender that most people in my area that I have noticed have heard of is Caitlyn Jenner. And in my opinion, Caitlyn Jenner is not a very good example as a transgendered individual. She is not typical, and she has nothing in common with my spouse. Like, so that's like saying that Donald Trump is a prime example of every white person. That's really a bad example in my opinion. So I've been trying to educate people that, especially since my spouse is still my spouse, there are differences. I'll get into that in a little bit. I just want to get through this social stuff. So I'm really hoping, well, okay, let's go back a step. So that was everything I heard until the Orlando shooting. After the incident in Orlando, I had a shift. I noticed it's not just words and hateful speech that we have to be cautious about. We have to be concerned about those around us, because they might be freaks. They might have guns. They might be, I don't want to use the word terrorists, but they might be haters. And some haters are satisfied with using the venom of their tongue, and some are extremists, and they go beyond that and beat up, kill, murder, and rape, and do horrible things to other individuals. And with what's going on in our lives, with my spouse being transgender, that's something that we now have to worry about, because society views transgenders as the low of the low, like the bottom feeders of all bottom feeders. And it shows in everything that the news puts out, social media puts out, so-called friends have to post on their Facebook walls, and they're like, the world is full of bigotry about it, and people find it socially acceptable, so it continues and gets worse. So now every time my spouse goes out, I've got this fear in the back of my head that, oh, it's more likely than it was last year that something's going to happen just because my spouse exists. So that's a little bit concerning, and it fills me with lots of fear, and that's definitely not an improvement over how I felt last year, because now I have all these new stresses and anxieties that I didn't even know, like, realize existed until a week and a half ago. Okay, so that's how I feel about the social stuff that's been going on. I did want to touch a little bit on how things have changed in Rain and mine's relationship, and there has been a drastic change. Rain has been on T blockers for over 3 months and estrogen for over a month now. And when Rain first went on the T blockers, and leading up till she started her T blockers, things had calmed down our relationship. Like, if you go way back to my first video, I talked about how we weren't getting along. And so things weren't super peaceful. They were a bit better, like a bit more calm, a bit more relaxed, less blow-ups, less arguing, but still not great. Even when Rain started her T blockers, she was still a little bit more snappy and negative and angry, I guess is the word. And over the last 3 months, there's been a big change in that. Like, not a personality change, but like a aggression change, and like how emotionally upset she would get about certain things. And since the estrogen has been introduced, it's even taken a bigger jump towards the positive side. So we fight way less. Like, I'm not going to say we always get along, because we don't. The things I always did that annoyed her still annoy her. The things she always did to annoy me still annoy me. But there's a lot less fighting about it. There's more everybody's got pet peeves, and we do our best not to annoy each other, but it's not going to lead to a fight now. It's just, we're going to talk about it and figure it out. So that's very nice. And I'm very happy about that. There's been some changes with Rain physically. Her derriere is definitely the most shapeliest it's been since we've gotten together. She has a very nice tush. It's the exact shape that I think she wants to get. She just wants to add some bulk to it, which I understand. It's a little bit. But, and her chest is getting bigger. More round than out. Like, more rounded on the sides, but it's still growing. And, her laser hair removal is going very well. Most of the hair around here is gone now, and it's just some remaining ones up there and a couple stragglers down there. And then when that's all taken care of and we just need to worry about upkeep, we're going to start working on the rest of her body hair that she doesn't like. So that's improved. All in all, everything's going pretty good, except for with society. When Rain and I interact with each other, we're pretty comfortable with one another and honest, and I have to honestly say that I think our relationship is more stable than it has been in a long time, and it's good to know why. Very good, and as long as we keep working at it, we'll be fine. Society, however, seems to be falling apart, and not sure where to go about just letting people exist. And I really hope that they can figure that out at some point so that I can feel safe letting my spouse go to the grocery store, right? And I know if we lived in like a big city like Toronto or Chicago or anywhere really where there was a lot of diversity, we would just kind of blend in and nobody would be the wiser. But we live in a small town in southwestern Ontario where most of the stores have hookups for their customers to put their horses and wagons. We are, and that's no exaggeration. There's lots of modern technology and everyday stuff like that. We're not like in cabin land, right? But it's a very small town with a very small population, and a lot of that population hasn't even accepted women in the workforce, let alone someone as unique as a transgendered individual. So that fear really is, to me, alive and well, because it's just more dangerous than I could have anticipated. So anyways, I don't want to keep y'all on here all night, so I'm going to leave it with that. And I hope everyone has a wonderful time until I get to leave you my next video. Have a good day.